Now we get to the wise men in Matthew chapter 1 and 2. These are some interesting figures because here these guys come from the east. And by the way, there's probably more than three of them. there's there's nowhere in scripture it indicates how many wise men there were, other than there were three gifts brought. So there's, of course, famous Christmas tune, "We three kings of Orient are," and so on. The that is, I don't know where we've got that tradition, but really there could have been more. There could be a whole contingent of wise men that we've never even thought about. There could have been 5, 6, 10 of them, who knows? But three is traditionally stated. That being said, we often think about that, and we think about the gifts, and we usually think about that around Christmas time, this whole wise men thing. But it's something I think about quite often because I see this a lot in my ministry, where people from different cultures and backgrounds are being revealed Christ, revealed revealed the risen Christ all the time. Didn't think about this until just now, but I believe, here it is. Yeah, if you'd like a great book on that, Dreams and Visions by Tom Doyle. Great book on this whole idea. So how people in the Middle East are being awakened by visions of the Messiah. So that being said, here are our wise men from the East, and some pretty cool things we can say about these people. Jesus, he is, some have said, the fulfillment of pagan longings. That being said, and it's not blasphemous to say this at all, that by pagan we mean anything other than Christianity, just as a broad sense. Let's just put it there. So, and we could throw polytheistic in there too. So anything that's a departure from the three major Abrahamic religions: Judaism, Islam, Christianity, monotheistic, we'll just throw that in as pagan. Okay, so whether it's Zoroastrianism, whether it's Hindu, whether it's whatever, we're just going to say, use the word pagan, and it's not a derogatory term, it's just a religious term. So chill out. So in Matthew chapter 2, you have these pagan wise men who were astrologers. They were, today, they would have been, you have to think of them as basically religious scientists in a sense. And here they come from this other foreign land, only being directed by a star, which was very important to them and obviously fulfilled some of their prophecies. But it's interesting, whenever they came and were brought before Herod, it says in chapter 2, verse 3, it says, "When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. So they said to him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people." And so then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the young child. When you have found him, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also." So Herod did not have good intentions. And he had surrounded himself by yes men at this point, because it's pretty well known and historically verified that Herod slaughtered any Pharisee or Sadducee or anyone who opposed him. So the people he had set up in the Sanhedrin, which was the ruling council of the Jews, made up of priests, scholars, scribes, what have you, they were all basically yes men. And so at this point, they're just working for the king. It was accurate. Their description was accurate, but their hearts were obviously not where they should have been, because Herod intended on killing the Jewish this supposed Jewish king that was coming. Now, of course, we know that this is not talking about a king of Jerusalem, like that would take Herod's throne, but he's the king of all mankind, and he cannot be constrained to any sort of culture at all. And that's why we see these three wise men seeking him that aren't even Jews. They are Gentile worshipers of pagan gods, probably Zoroastrians or something of that nature. And they come and they are seeking out this Messiah. And that's amazing. You see that, you see this in other world religions today, that C.S. Lewis would have called Jesus the fulfillment of pagan longings. I've heard Dr. Louis Marcos talk about this too, that Jesus is, and I think that was Lewis that said that. If not, Dr. Marcos came up with that. Either of which would be, it's totally accurate. Paul used this in Acts 17 whenever he was addressing the pagan scholars in the Areopagus in Athens, Greece. He was talking about, Jesus being the fulfillment of their pagan longings and prophecies. So this is to be expected, really. It's been pretty amazing to me to walk around some of the biggest Buddhist temples in the United States, and you see these things that look so much like Christianity sometimes, but it just misses it by, it misses it by either a smidgen, or there's like a section taken out or something. You see this especially in the Vietnamese Buddhist Center down here in Southwest Houston. There's Panam Tarthagata, it's called, and this huge jade statue of their Messiah figure, which looks a lot like Christ, but predates him by several hundred years. And, in this figure, you see things like Panam Tarthagata descended into hell to free the captives, will come back one day and judge the living and the dead, has provided salvation for all mankind, will lead her followers into the Pure Land, and all these other things that just, they look a lot like Jesus, but it's a legend, it's a myth. And what we have here in Matthew is not legends or myths. This is historically validated happenings in ancient Judea. Matthew was not setting out to write about a mythical figure and create a bunch of myth around Jesus. He was writing to address that Jesus himself is the Messiah, and he was writing a history. So you could even say maybe a historical argument for Jesus being the Messiah. That's why he starts out with a lineage. And so these guys are looking at their myths, these wise men, and they're saying, wow. And they're looking at the prophecies in the Old Testament. They're like, wow, this is the myth made fact. Like, this is the myth made history. Like, while all these other things, like Panam Tarthagata, are mythological, Jesus is actual. He was a real person in history. Christianity has no foundation apart from God came in the flesh, was born of a virgin, lived a perfect life, died on a cross, raised from the dead. And Paul said our faith would be in vain unless he historically raised from the dead, and ascended into heaven, making intercession for us evermore. So without those things being historically true, we have nothing to believe in as Christians. In other words, the Christian faith is the only faith that can be historically verified over and over again. And here you have it. And so these wise men are coming to worship this, what they saw as a complete fulfillment of prophecy. And I thought that's pretty cool and worth mentioning, so yeah, I think that's enough for here. And next we will explore the how they worshiped and some of the other miraculous things that are still relevant for today. So